Jiggy, what's happening, man? Reminds me of that David Bowie song. Jiggy play guitar. It's a great name, man. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Presenting.
I'm Mike Massey, and you can catch me on Jiggy Jag TV and see a few of my trick shots there. Thank you very much.
Jiggy Jaguar.
I never knew what freedom was until I saw you lose yours.
Okay, there we are. Holy smokes. It is the big broadcast. We are live on the Sunday radio broadcast and also the mix on Tuesdays, iHeartRadio. We have a couple new stations joining us at amfm247.com today, which is pretty cool. And, of course, my buddy John is back. How are you, sir?
Just fantastic.
You are making things happen.
I feel like I'm 0-2.
I feel like I'm 0-2. That's right. Oh, look at that. There goes my mic. Holy smokes, it's a Sunday. That's fantastic.
It's like you had a Kenny Bolin thing happen there before it is.
We just... That's awesome. And we got it on tape. Okay, well, let's do this. Holy smokes. Well, let's do this. I am not gonna go to our guest. I am gonna find something.
Let's give
Music.
You all babble or something while you're fixing that, okay?
Hey, that's fine. Do it.
No, just give me a subject, Jiggy.
That's awesome.
I
feel like Star making bowling.
Oh, I love bowling. We may not agree on everything, but I like the guy. And the guy as a talent was awesome. If you guys don't know who we're talking about, there's a gentleman that used to be with a promotion in Louisville, Kentucky. Home of Jim, I am a raving Cornette.
Yes, Cornette, baby.
He probably knows more and is more intelligent about the pro wrestling business than anybody in the world right now. But if you aren't a raving progressive liberal, you're a piece of crap. But Kenny Bolin was his lifetime friend.
Jesus.
And Bolin ended up becoming one of the main heel managers, which for people that, follow MMA or don't have an, a insider view on the pro wrestling world, means the bad guys there. He managed them, and he was one of the main personalities. He became a main, what'd you say, TV personality also. So.
Yes.
And I think Mr.
Or as
Jaguar
Jim Ross would say, a protagonist. I don't know.
That man has a family.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's go. And I believe we might have Aaron. Aaron,
how
can
you doing,
hear
my
me?
man?
Let me see here. I'm slowly getting everything set up here because right before we came to you, I had my microphone fell apart on me. So
That's fun.
oh yeah, it's fantastic.
And it all of a sudden just came completely loose.
Yeah, just loose, gone, out of here. So we are gonna see if we can. Okay, Aaron, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I've got John too, so we can hear everybody. And we're gonna try to get something figured out here. I'll tell you, if the show was just radio and not video, we would be perfect. But I gotta do all this adjusting of cameras so people can see everyone. Okay.
Oh yeah.
There we go. I love this. Okay, Aaron, go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend, and talk to me and John a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get things going here. I'm trying to get everything set, so I figured we'll give people something to listen to while I fix the TV component.
Cool, right on. Well, my name is Aaron Howell, and I am the lead singer / band dad for the international rock combo motherfucking Ruckus from Denver, Colorado.
That is awesome.
Are you guys like a Christian band? Sorry, I'm just having fun there.
Yeah. Actually, the MF stands for mother friendly. I misspoke there.
I like you already, Aaron.
Yeah, and at my age, it's starting to stand for missing follicles as well.
That's awesome. So this name, I got to know about this name, baby.
So, well, I mean, the short version is the band has been together for well over 20 years. The first show I played with what I would consider my band, which never stopped, was St. Patrick's Day 1997. Now, that band was named by the lead singer that we had at the time, who has since passed on, but we needed a clean name for the first show that we did because we were playing a youth center here in Denver, which was interesting being a band full of agnostics and atheists. So, but it was this youth group that we would go hang out at and go see bands and you know, they'd have coffee and pool and arcade games and punk bands would play. And I mean, we would even go to the Bible study to just talk and learn and satiate our adolescent curiosity. But at that point, the band was called Fourth Year Freshmen, which is a band name that does not work for a bunch of grown men out of high school trying to play rock and roll. You know, it works for a high school punk rock band. But, you know, we outgrew the name.
Did you guys ever come through Salina, Kansas?
We came through Salina, Kansas all the time.
Okay, because I think I interviewed you for Jiggy Jag TV at one point. I remember that name, Fourth Year Freshman. I'm like, holy
shit. Yeah, you
shit.
Probably did. We used to play Salina a lot.
That's awesome.
Actually, my buddy Raymond from Salina, Kansas, did this tattoo on my arm.
Look at that.
He's one of your more prominent tattoo artists, and I think we played in Hutchinson too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you probably did.
Yeah, but yeah, we used to go to Salina all the time.
That's fantastic.
But, you know, the lineup had changed so many times, and the sound of the band had changed so many times, and you know, at that point, I was really the only original guy who played that first show. So we, you know, and I hammered on this for years. Of guys, we've got to rebrand, we've got to change the band name. It's not even the same band name anymore. Just because it never stopped doesn't mean that it's the same band. So
yes,
you know, we went back and forth on some different band names, and we were arguing and trying to figure out what sounded the coolest. And we happened to be listening to some Wu-Tang Clan. You know, Wu-Tang is the most punk rock and metal. Wu-Tang is the most punk rock and heavy metal hip hop band of all time, and you know, we really like them a lot, and they influenced. If you listen to some of our lyrics, every once in a while, you'll hear a little hint of a 80s, 90s hip hop reference. We reference Eazy-E in some of our songs. We've referenced Too Short. We've referenced Wu-Tang in our songs. So we're driving around and we're listening to Bring the Ruckus, and you know, the chorus, the intro, the Bring the Motherfucking Ruckus comes on, and we were like, man, how cool. Our drummer, or actually I said, man, how cool would it be to just call the band Motherfucking Ruckus? And Ty, our drummer, just said, you know, who says we can't? Why not? You know, we can do whatever we want. So now over here in the States, people are a bit more uptight about profanity.
Oh, yes.
But when we've gone over to Germany, they've actually asked us, you know, why do you guys abbreviate the word motherfucking? And I told them, you know, when people ask that, I'm like, well, we can't put posters up in restaurants or public places if they have profanity on them. And people in Germany were just blown away by that. They're like, you can't say dirty words? And it's like, well, you can say them, but you can, you know, only say them on like YouTube channels and on HBO and stuff like that. Like you can't say them on network television. You can't say them on radio.
Yeah, the German heavy metal scene and the German music scene. One of our good buddies, Mr. Michael Nagy, who went back to Jersey. He is into the industrial electronic, you know.
Oh, the Germans love
that scene. And he loves the hell out of these bands, and when they come through, he always interviews them, and he always, you know, has to change his intro, because usually it's Michael Nagy for Jiggy Jag TV, and then he changes it for them, where he's like, motherfucking Michael Nagy here with Jiggy Jag TV, and he gets them all hyped, and they all get into it, and they all understand, and they get comfortable. Whereas he's done a few there's a few where he's done professional, straight down the middle type things with them.
Right.
And yeah, they don't understand what's going on. So yeah, I'm sure you explaining the poster situation to them, they're like, huh?
Well, and what we kind of did to offset the, because it is kind of lame that you have to make it say MF because you can't use swears or it'll upset the children. God forbid anyone teach their children context or the appropriate times to use profanity or what their application and utility are. But so we kind of offset that by creating, integrating it into a piece of our branding where, we have our like superhero emblem. The thing that popped into my head when I asked the designer Josh Finley to do that was I was like, you need to look at Mega Man. You need to look at Mega Man bad guys and just see how each one of the bad guys and each one of the good guys kind of has their own emblem, their own symbol. And so we began working to MF into a big part of our branding of our whole universe of creations. And we actually have a document called the Manifesto Fraterno, which is kind of our statement of vision and purpose. It's our band mission statement essentially, and it's a document where almost every single word in the document is an M or F. Like all the different values that we have, like all the different focuses that we have, are MF statements. And so we've just integrated it into our branding in kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of way.
That's awesome.
I love it.
We've got John Mosier with us today. He made the trip in from Wichita. And,
right on. Kirby's Beer Store. A fine
Oh yeah, I got
establishment.
drunk there many times. Many times listening to bands.
We played there one time years ago. We were on tour. I want to say it was actually the last stop of a tour that we began 7 years ago today, if I'm not mistaken. I posted on our Instagram story the poster for that tour. So I guess it didn't start today, but I released the poster for that tour 7 years ago today. But the last stop of the tour was at Kirby's Beer Store. And I want to say we played for 3 people. And because the bar was so small, we were able to have a guy from the band stand in each corner of the room and oh my God. And surround the crowd in the bar, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a different little venue, but it's kind of fun when you get some people in there and stuff. But
I love it. Kirby's Beer Store is great.
First time I went to Kirby's Beer Store, one of the things that I always talk about is in this in our studio here at the old K-Jag Radio, I have posters from bands that I've got signed all over the place, and I think I may have a 4th-year freshman poster somewhere on this wall.
I'm sure you do.
And,
if we used to play Salina a lot,
and
yeah.
And so the first time I went, somebody told me, they're like, you got to go to Kirby's Beer Store. It's the coolest thing ever. And I went down there, and I'm looking around at all the posters all over the walls, and I'm like, I drove a half hour to go to my house? What's going on here? It looks the exact same thing. And and I'll tell you, the magic of Kirby's is pretty amazing. And
it's a great place.
It is pretty amazing. And so when you guys played Hutch, where do you kind of halfway remember where you might have played there? Because
man,
I'm sure it probably wasn't like McGraw's or something. I'm sure that's way.
I do remember the name of a few places we played in Salina. I know we played the Blue Mule when it was around.
The Blue Goat is what it was called.
The Blue Goat, yeah.
The Blue Goat, yes, the legendary Blue Goat.
Yeah, we used to play the Blue Goat a lot, and
I know that's where we I know that's where we linked up with you guys, because
you know what? Now that you mention it, I'm having a vague recollection. Our times in Salina were always a little bit hazy. I'm sure you can understand.
Oh yes.
People in Salina drink in a way that I have never seen since.
You know what's funny Salina, and my mom and I, when we lived there, all those years, she used to always talk about everybody. She always used to ask people, why are people always on? There's more bicycles in this town, a lot of bicycles, and they were like, well, it's because everyone gets DUIs.
Oh yeah,
everyone's on bikes.
Oh yeah, and we actually had an instance where I like the cops are so used to people just being drunk there. When we dealt with the cops for some reason. I can't remember what it was for, but it was some dramatic night in Salina because almost every time we played in Salina there was some kind of drama.
Yes.
But the cops were so cool. They were just, they were young guys. You could tell they partied on their nights off. They gave us a ride to our hotel room so that we wouldn't drive drunk. They were just the nicest dudes and just, oh yeah, we saw you guys last time you were in town. Super nice guys. Salina's fun.
There was a guy and I've got to dig up this. I know there's an interview or two somewhere with you guys, and we did, and I know one of them had to have been with our resident drunk, Bruce on the Loose, and this guy, he would get so hammered at the bar that, like, he would stumble home, and the cops would always end up giving him rides home because he would, like, stop, and he would be like, protect and serve, give me a ride home, protect and serve, and they're like, okay, Bruce, get in the car.
Yeah.
So they were always Bruce's taxi.
It's kind of bad.
And we played so many shows in Salina, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of many of these places because it's been so long. But the Blue Goat for sure.
Yeah, there was the Blue Goat. I'm right across the street, kind of catty corner across the street was the Paramount Bar, which was like, oh my God, and it's still there. And the Paramount is tiny. You get Kirby's Beer Store has more room than the Paramount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if we ever did the Paramount. I mean, it was one of those things where we would do Salina at the beginning or the end of a tour because number one, we always had a great time.
Yes.
It was a great warm up, and we always got so well taken care of in Salina. We always got fed. We always got a place to stay. We always got paid well.
Yeah, Matt Stewart and Kevin Hardison, who used to book the Blue Goat, Tim Dixon, they used to always make sure everybody got paid, everybody got fed, everybody had a place to stay.
Yeah. I have nothing but positive things to say about our time in Salina.
And also, since you guys were, I'm assuming, since you're traveling from Colorado, it's a hop, skip, and a jump. You go to Salina, and boom, you're back in Colorado. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a longer drive because it's, what is it? It's like 8 hours from here. But
yes.
But Denver is kind of an oasis in the middle of a vast wasteland. There's nothing.
Me and Ninja Larry used to meet more bands who were either coming from Colorado, heading to Wichita, Kansas, or going from Salina to Colorado. In fact, one of the stories that I love telling is the fact that I met Wayne Static at a Walmart one time in Salina. And
no way.
He had no clue where he was. He went in. I was, for whatever reason, I was at the Walmart at midnight on a Thursday. I don't know why. John probably has some comment that he's coming up in his head that he'll pop out here in a little bit. But and I go into the Walmart and I see Wayne Static, and I'm like, you can't miss that hair.
No.
And I walk up to him at one point, and I'm like, so you're Wayne Static? And he's like, yeah. I don't even know what town this is, but we're headed to Denver.
Yeah. We used to have a guy here in Denver, a kind of a local character, who deliberately went out of his way to look exactly like Wayne Static.
That's awesome.
So, like, you would see this guy walking around with the Wayne Static hair and the eyeshadow and all the stuff, and you'd be like, dude, that's fucking Wayne Static. And then someone else would go, no, that's not Wayne Static. That's this guy here in town who really likes being mistaken for Wayne Static and dresses like him and walks around looking like him. He saw a Static X poster and just went like, yes, that's it. That's my identity forever.
I wish to God I would have known about this guy when we were at Exotica last year in Denver, because Michael Nagy is a huge Wayne Static mark, and he would have been like, I could have just pointed him in that direction. He could have been like, "Oh, it's Wayne Static."
Dude, I just wonder how many times that poor misguided groupies have betted that guy, like, and woken up the next day and been like, I can't wait to tell my friends I went home with Wayne Static, and it's like, I'm not Wayne Static, I'm Peter
blah
Smith.
blah blah.
No, I'm Dwayne Static. Dwayne Static. It's different.
I'm his fourth cousin, yeah.
Very similar. No relation.
No. That's fantastic. So bring me up to speed on what you're doing with all the things that you're doing now, because you've got your hands in all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so back in the days when we used to go to Salina a lot were days when we were touring a lot more heavily. We were a lot more reckless in our approach, and it was pretty much just like gig, tour. And, since those days, we've had some lineup changes. Obviously, as time is wont to do, time has passed, and we've gotten a little bit older, and
yes,
and everybody's gotten married, and I just had my first child about a month ago. Actually,
That's cool.
He's 5 weeks old today, which is super cool. And our drummer Ty has had a couple of kids, and we're in this position where we have, we've got the lineup the way we want it. We're all best friends. Me and Logan and Tony and Ty are super tight, as close can be. And we have no plans to stop doing what we're doing. So a few years ago, well, yeah, I mean, it's, some guys have golf, some guys have car clubs. We have a band. And, we are in the fortunate position where we have a reasonably good following for a small underground band. We have our label, Rodeo Star Records, in Germany, and we have this opportunity to go tour now and then. So we had to really decide how we were going to keep the band functioning. And, it takes us a while to do an album. We do write a lot of songs. We're a pretty prolific band. But just logistically speaking, it takes us a long time because of, budget constraints, the fact that, Tony is moving back to Chicago for a second time, so we have to do a lot long distance. And we were trying to come up with ways that we could best serve the 1% to 2% of our fan base who is super engaged and always hungry for more stuff.
Yeah, you're wanting to make sure that people, are out there, because this is the one thing, and I think that's nice that you guys are doing what you're doing, is the fact there are so many bands and so many people, and this could be, bands, comic book artists, anybody that we've talked to, even porn stars. They don't keep putting the content out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, people want to know what you're up to.
No, it's got to be consistent. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be consistent quality stuff. And so what we decided, a few years ago, was we were going to focus on giving people something more to sink their teeth to. Everybody uses the Beatles as a reference when they're talking about exemplary bands. Well, the Beatles did it this way, and I'm gonna do that again. Sorry, but when
That's awesome.
you look at when the Beatles came out, right, and they had an entire industry that was just built around the additional supplemental content that came with the band. They had the movies, and they had the little fanzines, and they had all the merchandise and things like that. And then you look at a band like Kiss that has all their supplemental world that you can dive into. And to a different extreme, you have these bands that are we're from Colorado, where the jam scene is huge.
Yes.
You look at bands like Fish and Widespread Panic and Yonder Mountain String Band and things like that, and they'll do 3 to 6 night stands at Red Rocks here in Denver.
Oh yeah.
And they won't repeat another song. They have theme nights. They do all these things. And we started to brainstorm ways that we could keep our top people engaged, because we're not interested in being the most popular kid on the block. We're more interested in being the kids at the park that a few people go smoke weed with before class. You know what I mean? Like,
That's awesome.
we're not interested in necessarily getting in front of the right people as we are doing right by the people in front of us.
Yes.
So we set out deliberately to serve a very, very small portion of the people who follow us. And then we have found that in turn spreads out to the more casual and secondary and tertiary ring of fans. And so I've had the fortune to work for I've had the good fortune to work for Burn TV and the Nug Nation, which are pieces of Burn TV is a platform, and then the Nug Nation is a piece of content. It's all cannabis lifestyle based stuff.
Yes.
So I've gotten to see entertainment and media from this perspective of a content channel, and I've become a huge fan of Patreon, and have started following a lot of creators and content channels on Patreon. You know, I back Wisecrack and Kurzgesagt and Storytellers and a bunch of people. And so what we started to brainstorm was ways that we could serve the people in front of us, create content, create art, create music for the people in front of us. So we started beefing up our YouTube channel. We started doing the MF Monday series, which is all just videos of us presented as though we were just jamming in the living room up at Evergroove Studio where we're doing our albums. So we go up and we do deep cuts and cover songs and new stuff that we're working on and don't really have all the way fleshed out. So we have that series. We've done 32 episodes of that on our YouTube channel, MF Ruckus TV. And then we have the comic series, which the idea with that is to eventually, when we have the funding to be able to make it happen, is to do a bi-monthly motion comic series that people can follow. So we just released the second chapter. We're getting ready to do the third chapter of that. The motion comic for the second chapter should be done this month and released next month. We're working hard on promoting that. But we do all the voices for the characters in it. I write the stories myself. We have a local independent comic hero who's kind of a brilliant Hesh comic, absurdist, satanic, just really brilliant guy. This guy Jake Fairley, who is doing our comic. He's the creator of this series called This Is Heavy Metal, which when I first saw, I literally thought was a one-off run by Heavy Metal magazine. It's that good. And I ended up hiring him to do our book, The Front Lines of Good Times, which is the big thing that we're promoting right now. And then in addition to that, we do our podcast, the motherfucking podcast. You can find it, the MF podcast, on wherever you get your podcasts from. And we do that every week before we go to rehearsal to write songs and prepare for the new album. So,
well, I think the whole Patreon thing is fantastic. That's one thing that I see a lot of people going to Patreon.
It's smart.
You know,
it's smart. A rising tide lifts all ships.
Our buddy Michael Nagy does Patreon. He told me at one point, he's like, I'm going to start doing Patreon. And I'm like, okay. And then a little bit later on, he's like, holy shit, this Patreon thing works.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a huge monthly budget, but we have about 32 patrons from which we get about $500 a month.
Wow.
And that's,
that's nothing to sneeze at, baby.
No, that's a good gig. That's one good gig.
Holy
that's one
shit.
Good gig. And that enables us to do our podcast. It enables us to do our videos. It enables us to pay our studio bill. You know, it enables us to put money into marketing. It enables us to do equipment upgrades when we need to buy merchandise, all the things that a band needs to survive. And one of the big reasons that we started doing things the way we do is we're like, listen, if we want to do this Patreon thing, we have to offer a lot to people.
Well, yeah.
We have to underpromise and overdeliver on what we're giving to people. And so we can't just be relying on, hey, help us get our album out.
Yeah, yes.
Because
that's one thing Nagy has been able to do is that he does band interviews. And so what he'll do is like he would interview your band, and he would talk to you guys for like 10 minutes. And then he would do an extra 5 minutes where he would just ask, fan questions that people had submitted on Patreon, or questions that you guys don't want to answer publicly, but you don't really mind answering it for a few people, his Patreon thing. And he makes, he's not making the kind of money you're making, but he makes
on the small end.
Well, and that too. That's great.
You look at someone like Kurtz Kassad, who makes science videos, and they are able to, through the contributions of patrons and sponsors, they are able to run a full-fledged content channel and put some information into the world that's really useful. Another thing that we do, and I've been mentioning this in a lot of the interviews lately because I think it's important for people to understand the way that we use the platform, is we allocate a budget of 10% of our Patreon earnings to give to other creators.
That's pretty badass.
Well, we support right now over a dozen creators on Patreon. Now it's through a small contribution, but the way we look at it is we've been fortunate enough to have this support. We want to spread it around a little bit, and if other creators kind of abandon this scarcity mentality and start thinking of it as like, hey man, the playing field is level now. The gatekeepers and the button pushers of the entertainment industry are losing their grip on media.
Yeah.
And so we're in this advantageous position where we can help the art that we really like, that you see that band or you see that artist or you hear that podcast that you're like, man, if these guys could just get a little juice, the sky's the limit for them. They could take over the world.
Well, there's you mentioned the Patreon thing. John and I are big wrestling fans, and this Conrad guy has come out of nowhere with Patreon, and former WCW play-by-play guy Tony Schiavone, he has so many patrons and makes so much money off this. He literally has like a part-time job just doing Patreon.
Right.
So it's amazing how, like you said, you get away from all these, gatekeepers and these assholes who have realized that they don't have to. You don't have to kowtow to these people anymore.
No, you don't. And as a band like us, we are used to having we are used to being nobody. We are used to languishing in obscurity. So for us, it's like this gives us an ability to say, you know what? We went so long without a label and had to do everything ourselves. We're used to having to do everything ourselves. We're used to having to promote ourselves. And what I like about Patreon is it has made it so that we can continue that tradition of self-sustaining, self-support, and have a little bit of money to make it work. Mm-hmm. And, most of the labels, like any label or agent or publicist worth their salt, isn't going to want anything to do with you until you've already established a track record. So what Patreon allows you to do is it allows you to have the fuel to build your enterprise up to its next level. And hopefully get you to develop your craft and to develop your material such that the bigger dogs might take an interest in it, and you can create and maximize your opportunity that way. Which, even if this is as good as it gets, we're pretty thrilled by what we're able to do just off of a couple dozen people, a few dozen people helping us out. It's really cool.
It's fantastic. John, what do you make of all this? The fact that they're basically doing everything on their own. They don't have to really worry about any of the gatekeepers, any of the assholes.
Well, to be honest, I'm pretty impressed just listening to the whole thing because, how many bands do you know that really have their, pardon the language here, shit together like they do?
Well, that too.
I mean, they're
Well, a lot of it is the result of hyperactivity. I mean, I have to admit to that. Like, I cannot sit still, you know, and my wife will back me up on that. I have a lot of trouble. I get cabin fever very easily, and it's important for me to stay busy. And you know, so if I had to just depend on writing songs and making albums and playing shows, I would be bored to tears, because we only play a show once every couple months.
Yeah.
And we only put an album out once every couple years at best, you know, and we have rehearsal once a week. But, you know, I mean, really a lot of that is just showing up and doing the work. So having these extra elements to kind of give us something to do, as well as something for the fans to sink their teeth into, it's a win-win proposition as far as I'm concerned, because I get to stay engaged in my hobbies, and the people who are interested in the stuff that my bandmates and I create, you know, they get extra shit, and
It's
the
fantastic.
the response has been, you know, overwhelmingly positive. I'm sure there are critics out there, but we really haven't heard a lot of criticism. We really haven't heard a lot of. We haven't really. There was a kind of a meme that was out going around a couple of years ago when Patreon first started really emerging into the popular consciousness, where bands were being criticized for using crowdfunding platforms.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it started with Allegiant trying to use Patreon, and the way they went about it kind of rubbed people the wrong way, even though they were just trying to be funny. And I personally think that they got railroaded a little bit from it. But there's this meme in the music business of just like bootstrapping and that there's something gross or there's something out of integrity with being the starving artist if you run your band this way. And fortunately we haven't heard a lot of that blowback from the music world. Probably number one, because nobody knows who we are and they don't care. And number two, at
least you're honest.
Well, and number two, because I think that we do it in a way that is where we really are being of service to people, and we're not trying to get rich. We're just trying to create the resources to be able to keep making stuff, to be able to create stuff. And as someone who's also a patron, it's really satisfying for me to watch a new Wisecrack video, or to see something at Cabal Gallery, or to see something on Kurtz Kassad, or see something on Storytellers, or see another one, see the Itch.io marching band be able to start doing live streaming on their channel, partially because of the money that I have invested in them. You know, that's very deeply satisfying to me. And so I hope that we are kind of, in a small way, avatars and exemplars of how the platform can really work and can be used in an ethical and integrous manner. I don't know if integrous is a word, but we'll just say it is.
Right. It sounds good.
Of this
It
conversation.
sounds good, baby.
Yeah.
It sounds good. This is fantastic. Before we let you go, how do people get a hold of you guys? Patreon, everything. How do we get involved with you guys?
So the one-stop shop to be able to find everything we're up to is to go to our website, which is mfruckus.com.
Yes.
That will have links to our podcast. It'll have links to our YouTube channel, to all our merch, to our Patreon. There's a link on there. If you go to mfruckus.com/FLOGT, which is short for Front Lines of Good Times, you can read both chapters of our comic book for free. There's PDF versions of the comic book available on there. You can see the first chapter illustrated by Joshua Finley and the second chapter illustrated by Jake Fairley, which, by the way, Joshua Finley is from Kansas. I believe he's He was raised German Mennonite, so he grew up out there
Jesus.
in Kansas, out in the farmland.
Oh boy!
But yeah, so you can
we'll
find
have to have
everything.
him on sometime. And
Oh, he's brilliant. If you've never seen Joshua Finley's stuff, he is absolutely brilliant. He's the pride of Kansas for sure. Gordon Leadfoot from Granny Tweed, which is Joshua Finley's band,
Yes.
actually produces our podcast, and they're from Kansas, and
Wow.
started out there. So they're all heroes of the Kansas scene. The Josh was
I
in
know
the
I've heard of
Dwayne
them,
brothers
obviously,
and
but-
Loco Machine for a while. So
well, you know what's funny is I think I've heard of that Granny Tweed. I think that's
Yeah.
another name that may have come through Salina or Wichita or something that we interviewed.
I'm sure.
Jesus,
They,
it's like a Jiggy Jag TV reunion show today.
yeah, right. So mfruckus.com. That's our website. We're on Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and
everywhere.
we're going to be starting a new SoundCloud project soon, which is going to be, we're going to use SoundCloud. Right now, it's got some songs on it and some early podcasts, but we're going to be doing a whole transformation on our SoundCloud and calling it Seeds and Stems. And it's going to be all
That's awesome.
It's going to be all demos and all stems from our recordings that people can use however they want. So that's coming here soon. The Front Lines of Good Times Chapter 2 is out in print. And the motion comic will be out next month. And our new album, The Front Lines of Good Times Volume 1, will be out on Rodeo Star Records probably by the end of the summer, early fall, if I were to guess. And we're going to have a big release party to celebrate that. And we've got some plans for a big production at the Oriental Theater here in Denver. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow. Well, good stuff. Well, I appreciate you making time, and me and John have had a blast talking to you, and
I've had a blast talking to you guys. Thank you so much, man. We'll have to, if you're ever in Denver, we'll have you on our podcast.
Oh, you know, I wish we would have been able to do this last year when we were out there for Exotica, because that would have been a blast.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this year Exotica decided that they didn't want to go back to Denver. They're going to go, of all places, Portland, Oregon. Yes, Portland, Oregon, home of the other white meat. And I don't know why they're in Portland, but okay. Yeah,
is fun.
but Colorado seems to be so much funner. You
No,
guys. There's a buddy in the Denver area. My buddy Ross lives in Springs. The champion from
Yeah, if
Kansas.
you go to the Buffalo Wild
Oh,
Wings
wow.
up there, go see
Yeah,
him.
that's funny.
Yes, he's working at the B-Dubs up there. He's
Cool.
what is he, like a district?
Bartender.
Oh, he's just a bartender.
He makes
Oh,
hell
okay.
good money. I mean,
It's good money.
oh,
There
it
you
is
go.
right
Get away
there.
from it. I can't get away from it to save
Well,
my
he's
life.
able to get tickets for the Nuggets Game 7, no problem. So
Well, there you go. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. We will be in touch.
Yeah, thanks for talking, guys. I appreciate you.
Definitely, man. Have yourself a wonderful day. There
you
he
as well.
goes, Aaron Howell on the old Skip Skype
Okay, I
machine.
got